we're going to transition to my telling you some about being at the Parliament. It was the Parliament of the world's religions, and it's only the 6th one there's ever been. The first one was in 1893 in Chicago. And at that Parliament, a young Hindu guru stepped on stage and pretty much introduced the Western world to all the teachings we'd never heard of here. He brought, by bringing Hinduism in and concept, for one, he called everybody sisters and brothers, which we were not doing at that time. And he also spoke of all religions having a core that was the same, which is not what Americans were thinking either at that time. And he introduced concepts over time of reincarnation, of astrology, of karma, of all these things that have become quite well known, but that's where the beginning was then. And he was calling religions to work together, and there have been 4 more since, and this was only the 2nd time it's been in the US, or the 3rd time in the USA. And they planned it for 2 years. And I want to give you a very disturbing reading to start with. I hope you don't mind, but it's one of the most disturbing things Jesus said. This is Thomas's version of it. And I want to take it in the context of the Parliament here. Yeshua says, this is Logion 16, "Some of you are thinking perhaps that I've come into the cosmos to bring it peace. No, you do not yet realize that I've come to throw it into utter chaos through burning blade and battle. 5 will be living in one household, 3 will fall off against 2, and 2 against 3. Parents will rise up against children, and children against their parents, until at last they shall stand united on their own feet." This one is not in the regular Gospels, these last 2 lines. "Until at last they shall stand united on their own feet." Kind of key that one got left off in the other renditions of this quote. So what is that about? How does it relate to the Parliament? I see 2 things going on in the world right now. I see things getting much worse in terms of violence and wars and all kinds of issues of income disparity and troubles and poverty. And I see things getting much better also. More consciousness, and in fact poverty, extreme poverty, has been cut in half in the last 15 years. And there actually are less wars. Somebody mapped it and discovered we're less warring, less violent than we've been. We just know more about it because of the internet and all. So I see both happening. And if you do any studies on conscious evolution, any of the readings about conscious evolution, you'll find that, or if any of you are in the sciences and know in biologies or history of evolution, you probably know it much better than me if you're in the science. But before a change happens in evolution, evolutionary change, things get bad. And that's why a jump happens in the evolution, because it was no longer tenable as it was. It couldn't be anymore. The single-celled organisms became so numerous, they were so actually successful in propagating that there was no room for them anymore, and they were going to die. They ate up their entire environment and destroyed everything. Sound familiar? So then they were running out, and suddenly it became so bad there was going to be extinction, and a breakthrough happened, and they started being able to actually become chlorophyll and use oxygen. Oxygen was a poison to them before. And suddenly they could switch it where oxygen became what they could use. So this is how evolution happens. So at the same time as at the Parliament we were focusing on income disparity, on women's inequality, on climate change, on all these difficult things. We had Native Americans or indigenous people from other places also there speaking of their trials at the same time as all those difficulties, all those horrors are there that would make us weep hearing about them. We also are getting together to do something as we've never done before. You would have enjoyed seeing the people there, I think. There was every kind of outfit. Everybody representing their own traditions and wearing headgear I've never seen before, and all kinds of robings and insignias and things. Such a joy to see humanity here, each bringing their own faith tradition, their own commitments, and working together. So what I see in Jesus' prediction here is he said things are going to have to get worse. They have to get worse because when they're so-so, we don't do anything about it. As you've noticed on climate change things, it's not till the evidence is becoming overwhelming that people are starting to mumble about maybe doing something. So they get worse and worse, and all of the great avatars would have encouraged the let it get worse so the transformation can happen. And then he says, until at the end, we all are united on our own feet. So we go through the clashes with each other, and then we come to where we know ourselves, we know our origins, we know our source, we stand in our own, what works for us, our path up the mountain, and now we can unite. So I saw at the Parliment great hope in that. Personally, I presented on the sacraments as food for the soul, and I presented together with a Hindu guru, Shakti Durga, and she presented on the pujas as food for the soul. We did a presentation together, and then we had 3 Vedantic Swamis who were following behind and talking about ritual as concretized philosophy, and it worked great together. And then I did a mystical communion and invited all people to come, especially all those who've been excluded by various denominations and churches, especially women who've been excluded from positions, and the divorced, and those who've had abortions, and those who've married the wrong people, and did all kinds of other things that so many churches excluded them for. And the beginning of the communion, we did a big forgiveness ceremony in which we prayed for forgiveness for each of our own religions, for how we have wronged each other, how we've excluded and judged. And it was a powerful cleansing of asking forgiveness and then inviting everyone to come participate. And we had Hindus serving with us as well as participating, receiving. We had 2 pagan priestesses in full garb who came to communion and came up and received, and were so moved that we received them, and we were so glad they came. So these actions, there were 600 presentations there. There were 10,000 people came from 50 religious backgrounds and 80 countries. And we came and worked together. It was called Reclaiming the Heart of Humanity. And it was moving and it was powerful, and I'm sure the effects were much bigger than what we saw right there in the space. And I appreciate knowing how many congregations of every kind around the globe were supporting us with their prayers and their love and their best wishes. So I really felt the world involved, and I thank all of you. And I expect to see big things coming from it, from all of us learning how to be together, how to accept each other, how to stand on our own 2 feet and be united. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today.